at chapter Membo, Pasik
I don't have a phone.
Right? No, I'm leaving like literally.
No, I told you to call guys. I don't have a phone.
Listen. He ends the shit at 5:15. He ends
5
like.
o'clock.
He ends like. He goes on.
no, Pasik Kof Ches, chapter Membo, Pasik Kof Ches. Excuse me, are you taking part in this class?
Yes.
He wants you to sit at the
Is he part of the class?
Yeah.
with the children.
Sure. You must sit down at the table if you don't mind. Be careful, my legs are in the way here.
It's 1:35.
Good. So it's the first pasuk in Shishi, in Chelik Shishi, chapter 46, pasuk 28. So usually I try to make the classes in things that you've already seen, and the chittas, which I take it you all do chittas in the Chumash. Today, however, I have a bit of a hayatim l'chal. This is a part of the chittas you haven't done yet, but hopefully we'll manage. Praise Hashem. And here we're holding. Shalom. What happened to, what's his name, Moshe? He was disappeared. Try and get a seat down at the table, if you don't mind. So we're holding here that Yosef has already made himself known to his brothers, and they've already gone back, and they've convinced Yaakov Avinu that Yosef is in effect still alive and that he's the Melech in Mitzrayim. And Yaakov gets together the whole family. We're told that it's altogether Shivim Nefesh, and he's all ready to go down to Mitzrayim, to go down and meet Yosef in Mitzrayim and settle. Pull up your chair up here. So, thank you. By the way, did anything work out in the bookshop?
Mm-hmm. I think it's good.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I have this change.
Take care of that. Oh, my love. He's all ready to go down and meet Yosef. And we're told all the sons of Yaakov with their generations, and it all ends up to altogether 70 people, 70 nefashos, and they're all ready to move. And Yaakov Avinu has already literally started, and he's had a dream in which Hashem appeared to him, and Hashem tells him he should go down to Mitzrayim, and he will look after him, and he will eventually elevate him and his whole seed from Mitzrayim. And then the pasuk tells us at the beginning of Shishi an interesting thing. And it says, V'es Yehuda sholach lefonov el Yosef loheres lefonov goishno v'yoveu atzak goishon. He said, all of a sudden, Yaakov Avinu sent Yehuda in front of him. In other words, ahead of them. They're all on their way gradually to Mitzrayim. And he sends Yehuda ahead of him to Yosef. And what was the purpose? To instruct, literally, or to look out the way ahead of him in Goshen. And that's where they were going. And they came to Goish and Turkey. And that's where Yosef went down and Yaakov came out. That's where they met, after having reached Eretz Goish. So what did he want was sending Yehuda ahead. And if it was a special request that he had, there were plenty of messengers and he was getting close already to Mitzrayim. He could have sent a runner, had he called a messenger, to Yosef, and Yosef would have done whatever he wanted. So what did he want? Lahoirois lafonov goishno. Well, that means literally to instruct or to give in, how do you call, orders or things of that nature in front of him in the land of Goshen. So whatever he needed there to instruct, L'chora Yosef would have taken care of it for him without any problem. And it's not clear exactly why did he have to send Yehuda. So it comes on Rashi, and Rashi says, what does it mean, Lahoirois Lafono, to instruct, literally in front of him? So it says Rashi, Ketargumai, this is a case where we can follow Onkelos, and what Onkelos says, that's in effect the Pshat. Lefanot loi mokem ulahoireis ha'eki tashebo. To decide on a place where he's going to live and to give instruction, lahorot, exactly how Yaakov and his whole mishpacha are going to settle in that spot. So Rashi sees then that the chief word is lahoireis, to instruct. So he had to send somebody who understood about him and about also a little bit about Mitzrayim. He's been a couple of times there and he's been with Yosef. And he will go to Yosef, and the two of them will instruct how to get him settled in a certain area or a certain spot. That's the first shot. Well, Medrash Agoda also comes along, Rashi, and he says there's a Medrash Agoda means a Medrash of what you might call a homiletic development, I don't know how you say it. How do you call it, a moralistic observation through the Medrash. Lahoireis Lafono, that he sent him to instruct. And what was that? Lataken loi beis Talmud. That he meant that he was sending Yehuda, that Yehuda should get him ready a yeshiva. A beis Talmud. Hey, Shalom Aleichem. You guys are all in a Beit Talmud. The only thing that's slightly surprising, that this was before Matan Torah. And the Talmud, in effect, was not yet given to us. Because at Matan Torah we were given both the Torah Shebiksav and the Torah Shebial Peh. Well, a Beis Talmud is a rather unusual expression. L'chora, Rashi could have said he sent Yehuda to make him a yeshiva, because we find that Yaakov Avinu, on his way out to Haran to get involved with Lavan and everything, and to meet his two wives and set up the whole Jewish people, for 14 years on his way over, Yaakov stopped and he learned in the yeshiva of Shem Eber. Now 14 years is not a bad run, yeah, to learn in a yeshiva. And by the way, Rashi tells us earlier that the whole 14 years he never actually laid down in a bed to sleep. Shalom Aleichem. That's not a bad achievement. 14 years. So what did he do? The Gemara says if you don't sleep for 3 days, then you can't carry on. And if somebody says, somebody makes a neder or a shabur that he's not going to sleep for more than 3 days, then it's potter. and you give him, if he makes a shavua, you give him malchus right away on the spot, because he made a false, a false shvua. He can't do that. So if he didn't sleep, this is just by the way. So there's plenty of eitzes. Yeah, you can have a Dremel in a chair or whatever, and it doesn't mean you don't sleep, but he never actually laid down balabatish, and slept. He kept a slefel, as they say in Yiddish. He kept a Dremel here and a Dremel there. And I actually once was in Kiryat San, so that's the Kwachabad of the Tanzach Siddim, the Kiryat San. I was once there, and the previous Kloisenberger Rebbe, the Kloisenberger, he was the Tanzach. He was the most amazing Oivet Hashem. He was just really something. And I watched how he, I wasn't able to go inside his private house and see what, but they say that on quite a number of days, including Shabbos, he would just sort of lay back in an easy chair, sort of cup a little Dremel, and then he would go again, and then later in the day he would lay down on another easy chair somewhere else, and he'd cup another Dremel, you understand? And that was his way of sleeping. So Yaakov Avinu was in a yeshiva. That's okay. And on the contrary, we find that the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma, and it also says at the end of Masechta Kedushin, the Gemara says that all of our forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they all sat in yeshivas. They all learned in yeshiva. Or put it another way, they were all Rosh yeshivas. They had yeshivas, and they were like the leading figures in their yeshivas. So the fact that Yaakov Avinu wanted a yeshiva, well, that makes sense. Exactly what they were learning is very interesting to know. Well, it would appear that Shem Va'eva had a tremendous amount of material to give over, 14 years worth for a person like Yaakov Avinu. But anyway, a yeshiva. But a base Talmud, that's an interesting expression. A base Talmud is a place where you sit and learn Gemara, where you learn Ter Shabbal Peh. So therefore Rashi adds another few words, and he said, what would be the purpose of this Beit Talmud that Yaakov Avinu wanted? He said, Shemishot, Teitze Hoira'or. Well, from there should go out instruction. And if you look in the Medrash, where it's brought down both in the Medrash Rabbi and in the Medrash Tanchuma, it's written, Shemishom Teitze Hoira'or, La'olam or La'kol HaShvatim. There's different expressions. In other words, that the purpose of this base Talmud was to give out instruction to all the Shvatim and to the world in general. So that means that he didn't want to stump set up a yeshiva, Yaakov Avinu. He wanted it should be a place where people learn, but they also give out instructions from their learning to other people. In other words, that he wanted a Chabadska, he wanted a Chabad house, and that would be a place where people are learning. You're supposed to react when I say that. He was making a Chabad house where people would learn, and they would give out to everybody, to all the Shvatim. There's already 70 peoples, and it would appear to anybody who was willing to listen and to be makabel. And therefore he calls it a base Talmud, because the word Talmud is the basis of learning and teaching somebody. Yeah? Lelamed, Talmud is like a sort of a noun for teaching somebody. The whole word Talmud is based on that. Of Amela, Yaakov Avinu wanted, and he sent Yehuda to look after that. So also the Shailam, Yosef must have been a very learned person, to say the least of it, because Yosef he not only apparently kept up learning Torah the whole time, but he learned so powerfully that being the king of Mitzrayim didn't affect him. He still was Yosef HaTzadik, even though he was close to 22 years dealing with Paro and the Mitzrayim. And that was the most low place, as our sages tell us. Yet nonetheless, Yosef, so how could you do that? He must have been very involved in his learning, Yosef. He must have been very. So, L'choira, Yaakov Avinu could have sent an email. He could have sent a messenger to Yosef and said, listen, part of arranging for me, which I know you're doing, is I need a base Talmud. I need a place where we'll be able to study Torah and we'll be able to see. What did he need Yehuda for? No, he has to send Yehuda specially, and Yehuda's got to be involved with Yosef in getting this base Talmud together. And Rashi sees, even though that's a Medrash Agoda, Rashi sees that as being so important that he brings it in the simple pshat of the pasuk. He just brings it b'shem Medrash. It's well known that Rashi doesn't bring any Medrashim unless they contribute to the simple meaning. So in order that we should understand this a bit, so what do we need Yehuda for? Why do we have to have Yehuda? Yosef is for sure a big London, no less than Yehuda, for sure. So in order to understand this, I'm going to sort of pinch a little bit. Not anybody, but I'll help a little bit. I want to go to next week's parsha, and there's a story brought in a Yom Yom about next week's parsha, but it's got to do with this. It's got to do with this week's parsha. And what is the story? It's a famous story which you've probably all heard of it. If you've read once the Hayom Yom, you've probably been through it once. Pieces all over, but you've probably been through it. It's brought down over there that in Parsha Vayechi, the Balaturim at the beginning, he says that these were the best years that Yaakov Avinu ever had. The 17 years he was in Mitzrayim, those were the best years that he had.
What?
And he says, therefore, 17 is B'gematria Toiv. These were very good years. And he even doubles it, the Balaturim. He finds a reason to, I'm not going into that. He says, really, it was 2 times 17, which is 34, which means doubled, good, very good, doubled, what you call it, joy of living and goodness. That's what he says, the Hadikolim, the Balaturim. So there's a story that some tzaddik went to Cheder one day. He was I don't want to use the expression of a young boy, because our Rabbeim said about themselves that they were never boys. You know the story, yeah. There's 2 or 3 stories. So I don't know what to say. When he was young, that's someone said, he was learning in Cheder, and he hears from the Malamed that the Malamed said that the best years of Yaakov Avinu were these 17 years that he lived after he'd come up to, and here he's making the beginning. So some tzaddik comes home from the Cheder, and he says he must talk with his Zayda. That means the Alter Rebbe, because he didn't. His mother passed away, and his father also, I think, passed away young relatively. And the main bringing up was by the Alter Rebbe. You know about that. So he said he wants to talk with his Zayda. So they said, well, that's not so simple. And once the Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe didn't go around picking roses, an expression in Yiddish, somebody who, does nice things but not very useful, he picks roses, So he said the Alter Rebbe didn't go around picking roses, the Alter Rebbe was. So they said, listen, my little boy, you can't always have your Zaidi. So he said, I must have him. So they went up to the altar. They hadn't asked the Alter Rebbe yet. They went up to the Alter Rebbe, and they said that your Einiko wants you, very important. So the Alter Rebbe said, Azoi, Taka, and he closed everything, got up, he came down very energetically down the stairs. So the Rebbe said you can learn from that also, that if you're a Zaidi and you hear that your Einiko really wants to talk to you, then you should go energetically. You shouldn't mess around. That's what the Rebbe said. I heard it from the Rebbe. Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe comes down and he says to the Tzemach said, where she is. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, listen, I don't know, but somebody's got something wrong. He said, the Malamed taught me in the Cheder, and he said in the name of a very important person, and he said that the best years of Yaakov Avinu were in Mitzrayim. And he said, Mitzrayim is the most horrible place in the world. And our sages call it the Erebas Ha'oretz. How do you call it? The not very nice part of the whole world. And it was a very immoral place and everything. It was not a good place at all. So he said, how could Yaakov Avinu, he was the Bechir Shebaovis, the chosen one of the forefathers, how could he have lived good years in Mitzrayim? So that's a kasha he asked to the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe never batted an eyelid. As he said, the Alter Rebbe was not nispol from the kasha. He said it's a good question, but he said it's written in Pasha Vaigash that before he went down Klali, Yaakov Avinu sholach Yehuda to get him a base Talmud. And he said a base Talmud is not just a base Talmud is not just a place where they sit around twiddling their thumbs. But a base Talmud is a place where they learn, Almanat, that they should go out from that instruction to others. That's what Rashi said. Yeah? Mela said the Alter Rebbe, if you learn Torah, and you learn Torah in a way that you're sitting in a base Talmud, and you're looking forward to giving forth to the world, and to benefiting the world, he said that even in Mitzrayim, that's the best year. That's the best years you could have. That's Mahapik, the whole Mitzrayim, turns it into the best year.
Wow.
Shalom Aleichem. That's not bad going. So come to us that the Alter Rebbe said that the whole thing was because they were learning Torah, and Yaakov Avinu wasn't this Paul from the whole Mitzrayim with it. He had his yeshiva, Pinktazeh we had in Eretz Canaan, and Pinktazeh we had when he wasn't in, he was in Eretz Canaan most of his life. Ismaila, wherever he was, Yaakov Avinu had yeshiva in Mitzrayim Ochazeh. But it was such a good yeshiva that was, and it was learning Torah in the right way. That's the best years. That's the best possible year.
They were learning.
You have to translate me.
Before Matan Torah, what was the nature of the Torah learning, or what were they learning?
He said before Matan Torah, what were they learning before Matan Torah?
Or how?
Before Matan Torah.
Oh.
What was the nature?
He's going to get to it.
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
That's not really what I want to talk about, but I'm going to mention that right now. And that is that Ariel asked a very, practical question. It wasn't yet Matan Torah, so what does they have so much to learn? Yeah. So you should realize that in the Medrash here, on that spot in the Medrash Rabbi, the Medrash says that Avram Avinu learned the whole Torah Kula, and the Gemara says that in Masechta Kiddushin and in Masechta Yoma. He learned the whole Torah Kula, and he kept the whole Torah Kula, afilu eirevei tafshilin. He feel when Yontav was running into Shabbos, he also made erev tafshilin. And there's a girsa in the Gemara that he eirevei tchumen, not tafshilin, no tchumen. And that is, according to the Gemara, Oim the Rabbanan. Yeah. And so he was really into it, had occurred. What's his name? Eric Tafshilin also. But it's sort of, based on a positive. Anyway, Avram Avinu, so the Medrash says, how did Avram Avinu, how did he know all this? Where did he get the whole Torah, Kula, Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, even things like Erevi and Tavshilin? So you know what, there's a machlekes in the Medrash between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and another Tana, I've just forgotten his name. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says an amazing thing. And he says that Avram Avinu was such a holy person, and he meant so much by Mesiras Nefesh, the truth. Yeah, as we see from his life, that he had so much Mesiras Nefesh, that when he went to sleep at night time, Hashem used to open up potfuls of like milk, of Torah, and pour it into his head. That's literally what he said. Yeah. And so when he woke up in the morning, he had a whole series of new packages of Torah that had been poured into his head during the night. That's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said. Comes on the other Tana, and the other Tana said, but wait a minute, that sounds a bit, He said, I say that Avram Avinu had a tremendous cop. Avram Avinu was tremendously. So he started off with certain things he got from Shem Va'eber, and certain Yesoidas were known before Matan Torah, and with an amazing series of tremendous Yegias, basically he gradually built the whole Torah Shebal Peh. So it comes along, some of them are forced and they say, no, wait a minute, that's pretty, seems hard to imagine that he built the whole thing. So it comes along one of the great Meforshim, and one of the great Meforshim of us says that our fathers were very remarkable people. That they meant so much be'emes that if they started something, then Hashem finished it in a tremendously generous way. In other words, Avram Avinu started off, and he wanted so bad, Min HaShamayim, they poured him down while he was asleep. That's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said. Now, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is just over here. And anybody who knows about how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai learned Torah during his life, he just literally knew everything. The whole Torah Shebal Peh, Benigla, is full and full of statements from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The whole Zoya is Rabbi Shimon, plus the Tikkunei Zoya, and plus, they say the Zoya HaChodesh is also Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Well,
Now, come on, how much can you fit into a life? So, what this great Meforsh on the Medrash says, he says like this, he says that if you really mean Erlich, you really mean pure desire that you want to know Hashem's Torah, then you start off a bit, and then whatever method you're using, Hashem will bless it. So that's for sure that even according to the elder opinion, Avram Avinu, he did a bit of work himself, for sure. And then his mind was so blessed by Hashem that his mind just flourished and it just produced all the rest of it. So if we learn that way, then there's really no difference between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and him. It's just a question of how did it happen. It's basically the same principle. Of either he got it when he was shloffing and Hashem poured it down like milk cans into his head, or he got it through working with his seichel blessedly and tremendously, and he ended up with knowing the whole Torah. Shalom Aleichem. So he gave it over to Yitzchak. And since Yitzchak was ready for the Akedah, and he willingly was ready to give away his life for Hashem, Hashem blessed him, and he had the same. He got the whole Torah just opened itself in front of him. And the same with Yaakov. And he said about Yaakov, as I stated in the Medrash, that Yaakov Avinu was always learning Torah. No matter where he went, or whatever he did, Yaakov Avinu was learning Torah. So it tells the story